In China, they are presenting this robot with a walk that is, well, quite increasingly natural, according to reports. This robot imitates human walking. Well, it's part of what's happening there in China. And speaking of robots and also of China, the Chinese are showing off. This robot has set a record, a milestone in robotics. According to what they've claimed, this robot has already managed to take 130,000 steps. Besides, at 47 degrees Celsius below zero, it's good, getting better each time. The countries, especially China, Japan, the United States, Korea, some countries that are making great advances in robotics. But other countries, even here in Latin America, where you suddenly see surprising advances in Brazil, right here in Mexico, in the field of robotics, and in Spain as well, there have been quite a few interesting advances. So, in general, the effort is to learn from what I already know, from what is already being developed elsewhere, but also to propose different things. Robotics is advancing rapidly, with intense developments like this small robot. According to reports, this humanoid robot called Unitree from China supposedly completed a challenge of 130,000 steps in the extreme cold of Altai Yangtze, according to what is being reported. The goal was to prove and clearly show endurance, as they're demonstrating.
Also in extreme temperatures, because suddenly you might say, well, it works, but at what temperature? How hot? Seeing it now in such extreme heat gives you an idea.
It shows that, yes, they are built to handle extreme conditions. Now, let's see if they can handle the heat here in Monterrey. That would be even more extreme. Another image that stands out today is this one. Well, this event, this warning that has been made about planes, helicopters that have been appearing in Lebanon and Syria, in which they claim, there they are, you can't quite see it. There is a plane dropping a liquid, according to reports. They are Israeli planes. The Israelis themselves warned them. They said, today we are going to be dropping some supposedly non-toxic chemicals. This, of course, has obviously drawn attention in the last few hours. According to what the F News agency reports, this was reported not only in Lebanon, but also in Syria. Let's discuss the details of the report, but you can see how they threw water. Well,
The chemist?
A chemical, some kind of substance, supposedly. I insist, they claim it's not toxic. It's a topic that obviously, makes more than one person nervous. Obviously chemical.
People in Lebanon have different information. They consider it toxic.
Exactly. Let's discuss the news and current situation before getting into Striga spoilers. The point is that, one is launched. Israeli military planes dropped unknown chemical substances in areas of southern Lebanon. Also, in multiple reports today, Monday, February 2nd, it was reported that the United Nations Peace Mission in Lebanon had reported, or in the end, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, that the Israeli Defense Forces had previously notified. And look, if they weren't toxic, they wouldn't have given the warning and telling civilians to hide, because Israel warned them that civilians should, let's say, take shelter, according to the following report. He warned the peacekeepers to stay away and take cover, forcing United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon to cancel more than 10 activities it had in the area, which affected a third of the border for more than 9 hours. Warning that, there could be a health risk, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon stated. The United Nations called the action unacceptable and warned it could endanger the health of its soldiers and local civilians. What's happening? What do we know so far?
Lebanese Environment Minister Tamara El-Sain from the Shiite Amal Party also collected samples. She arranged for samples to be collected and analyzed, coordinating with the Lebanese army. According to her analysis, she said she's not surprised the samples tested positive for toxicity. Remembering that at the beginning of the war with Gaza, there was already a previous attack with white phosphorus. An attack by Israel burned about 9,000 hectares at that time. Last week, a similar incident was also reported in southern Syria, specifically in a province called Huaneitra, where an Israeli aircraft also dropped a chemical.
The challenges continue, the problems in the area persist. The thing is, nobody knows what the risks are. Samples have been collected. Hopefully the lab can soon identify what it is. The affected areas like Aita and Al-Shaba are inhabited, and that's what causes concern, because there are rural areas there, let's say areas for planting, agriculture, and so on. Is there a solution right now? a request for a response from the United Nations in which a formal explanation from Israel is demanded to see what this situation is about. Because they had to release these chemicals in 2 different countries.
Strangely, they don't specify what the chemical is or why it must be released for military reasons. What does this mean? What does the chemical actually do?
What's the issue here? That's not the most worrying thing in that sense, and well, it's not the first time this has happened. That's also the issue. We'll be paying attention to the information in that regard. But another topic that draws attention is this image, if we can put it up here on the screen. This comment made by Donald Trump himself about the Einstein case. Let's listen.
So, he made a statement about me and Jeffrey Epstein. I have nothing to do with him or Jeffrey Epstein. If you look at the Department of Justice, they announced.
He assures that he has nothing to do with the Einstein case. And well, he even says that the Department of Justice should say, we have other things to do, right? Basically, he's suggesting that they should stop investigating this case, which is obviously just beginning, and we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg of what's behind this case. So there's still a lot to learn, a lot to find out about a topic where more and more names close to the case keep coming up, even Donald Trump himself. So, well, when he says no, that he has nothing to do with it, you know what I mean? Well, this is very different from what's really happening. And actually, it's quite the opposite. It seems like things are going to start closing in on him. The cycle is going to close. But at the same time, a message is being sent. This time with this or about this Gustavo Petro, the Colombian president. Let's listen to what he says about this president regarding trafficking in Venezuela.
Well, let's see. It's been very good in the last month or two. It was certainly critical before that, but somehow after the Venezuelan war, it became very good. He changed his attitude a lot.
He claims that after this situation began, well, this raid that was carried out against Nicolas Maduro, the way he acted was very different from before. Petro was kinder, he says after that, and well, basically kind of making fun of Petro, saying that he got scared, basically, after seeing that they went after this one. Maduro, well, the thing is that
I recall that after the incident with Maduro, Petro received increased protection.
the thing is, I honestly don't think Petro is going to stop making fun of people or stop making comments. But he has toned it down, but that's how he is. Petro tones it down one day, ramps it up the next, tones it down one day, ramps it up the next. That's the style he's had. It seems to work for him, but at least this message draws attention from this Trump. Let's discuss the current events in Iran and the United States, as there are several key issues involved.
Two anonymous Iranian officials leaked information to the New York Times. What Tehran is already planning right now for the upcoming meetings, I think the meetings in Ankara and Turkey were scheduled for Friday. And well, according to the New York Times, citing these two Iranian officials, Tehran would already be willing to completely suspend or shut down the nuclear program in order to reach an agreement with the United States. And if confirmed, well, this report would mark a drastic change, but an impressively drastic one. Regarding the opposition that this country has had on this particular issue, not about the suspension of uranium enrichment. At one point it reached 80, 60, something like that, a level that is unnecessary for what they supposedly use it for, which is for nuclear plants, which doesn't happen. I think that 10% is not necessary. So it was ridiculous. Why want so much when you don't need that percentage for what you say you use it for?
If the issue here is, as they say, it's like there's a constant attempt by Iran to waste time on this issue. And there were two options. Either Iran wanted to become the country competing with Russia in uranium enrichment, which honestly, I don't think they're getting into that business. But the other possibility is that they would be using that kind of material for weapons, and they don't even have to be atomic weapons. There are certain types of missiles that use radioactive material. For example, when they want to make missiles that penetrate bunkers, they use radioactive material. In fact, many of these missiles were launched in Afghanistan. There are even health problems in Afghanistan due to the radiation released by those missiles, which are not considered atomic weapons, but they are radioactive. So it has several functions from a weapon standpoint, besides the fact that, well, if this situation is handled poorly, it can lead to weapons. These dirty bombs, even though they're not atomic bombs, make areas uninhabitable for hundreds of years. So yes, this agreement is honestly something that has been causing concern. If this leak happens, if it happens, the agreement will have tougher conditions than the previous one they had with the United States. Why? Because there is distrust on both sides, and I suppose they're right, because in that case we would have to wait, but they're going to have to say, let's see, the only way to trust that you're in a civil program is to open all your bunkers, because that's the only way to know. I really doubt that'll happen. At least they're buying a few more days, so in a week or two they'll just say the nuclear program is still continuing. They've repeated this for years, agreeing, then leaking info or pretending to negotiate, but at the last minute.
Well, not exactly. They say that, well, this would be like the final option, but they would prefer to go with the options that the United States gave them before the 12-day war, which was that Iran's uranium enrichment would be done outside, that is in Russia. That's the option they think is best. And that this Ali Larijani, who is the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, had already mentioned this to Ali Khamenei. Remember that he was recently in Moscow. So that's the option they want to propose. But if there's no other choice...
Well, this is it now.
Supposedly?
Up until now, even though they're in dialogue. And throughout all of this, we haven't seen much involvement from Vladimir Putin, from Russia, in the matter of Iran. Once again, leaving his friends, well, on one side, yes, just leaving them there. Now, well, let's say there's nothing that really shows, well, here Russia is really stepping in and putting its foot down, like saying, no one can mess with my friends here. I mean, no, that's clearly not happening. They're far from that happening. And that also shows that, well, in the matter of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, it's an issue that will be resolved, possibly with a broader conflict or with a negotiation where you can't really negotiate as the Kremlin intends. Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, is also supposedly going to be attending the negotiations. He's going to be there. These negotiations, as noted earlier, will take place in Ankara, Turkey. People from Qatar will also participate.
From Egypt?
From Egypt. Where are you going?
And I think that, well, the ones from Turkey...
Right, so Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, the United States, and Iran would be the 5 participating countries. But France isn't there, nor is Germany, and neither is Russia or China. I mean, the countries that have been most involved in Middle Eastern issues. For the role of a neutral country, it's basically been Qatar, sometimes Egypt, and obviously Turkey, which are countries that have become increasingly influential. Even though I say Qatar is a very small area, right? It's actually a very small country, isn't it? But this is a plan that was devised some time ago, actually several years ago, by the United States. They said, look, Qatar, we're going to give you protection, but you're going to become a neutral country. You know the area, it's central, separate, and strategic. Just look at its location. It's a small peninsula in the middle of the Persian Gulf where 1/5 of the world's oil originates. So what better place to have the biggest base that the United States has in the Middle East? And not only that, but it has also become a neutral zone. Also, another one that participates often is Oman, just not this time. It catches my attention that it seems not to be in the meeting.
Let's be clear. It's not wrong, and neither are Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. But Qatar has acted as mediator for several years. And well, this would be, maybe if they succeed, an important point for them.
Exactly. And well, we have to see what Aragashi says later in the next few hours. If he confirms this, which has been leaked in the media, in the Western Journal, in all their outlets, in New York Times, in New York Times, because if not, if it's not confirmed, then it's the same technique again.
Today is Monday, so we've had about 4 or 5 days where they could be, if not, then
Exactly, they're buying time, and there will be. We know what Saudi Arabia said about this meeting. That's also why Saudi Arabia isn't sitting there at the table. Saudi Arabia has said if Iran is to be attacked, the United States should do it, while Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman have remained more neutral. Saudi Arabia wasn't very direct and didn't say this is the moment to attack, and I think it's clear that they can't be neutral. What will happen with other countries like Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, which are near Iran? Do they want to get involved in that issue? So far, they're staying quiet. What Iran is really good at is buying time, and the Ayatollah's regime has been experts at that for years. And while I don't know if Trump has the patience right now to keep putting up with this situation, and besides, with everything going on with Einstein and all this internal situation, it would suit him well to have something that distracts him, that covers up the information gap. Exactly, right? Let's move on to other matters, but they'll say, even though there's a supposed agreement, honestly, from what we've seen, that's what they did. That's how we were about 6 or 7 months ago. Back in the summer of last year, people were saying they were about to have a meeting where everything had already been discussed and a normal agreement was going to be reached. Everything was already set to go to Oman. And suddenly, well, there was the surprise attack from Israel and the United States, well, actually from Israel against Iran, because not even the United States knew about it. I mean, when the next day Marco Rubio was caught off guard saying it was a unilateral attack by Israel, they said they were notified only a few hours before the attack, with no time to turn back. A few days later, the United States got involved, but initially they said, it wasn't us, right? Later, they admitted, yes, we're involved now, and Trump agreed, that's fine, we'll participate too. They were already involved because Israel publicly asked, we need this missile only you have, will you help us? That's when the United States stepped in, but the United States wasn't included in the plan and only got the information hours before it happened, so anything could happen now. No. Einstein's case is getting really interesting, and this time the people who have decided to speak up have also decided to testify. Pay attention, this is Billy Hillary Clinton, and I think this photo will make it clearer if we show this image or if we picture the Titanic sinking there. I think Bill and Hillary are in this position now, where they say the former President of the United States and the former Secretary of State of the United States and former, what's it called?
Secretary of State? No.
No, I already said that, but candidate for what exactly? Not the presidency. The ship is sinking, and they want to take down as many as possible. If not, well, Trump still spoke today. No, I'm free of all sin.
Yes, I don't know where.
Imagine that. And he says, but Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and all of them, well, there are strange things there. He says, there are strange things there. I don't know what's going on. And you say, well, this is read more like this. I mean, it's read as if you're looking at several news stories at the same time. Among them, Trump trying to play dumb and saying, don't look at me, I have nothing to do with it, and trying to pin it on the Clintons. And he says, well, let's get into the topic then. They weren't going to get into this trial. They supposedly weren't going to talk because, well, they also say they have nothing to say. Well, a lot of videos have already come out and even images of the Clintons participating in this or that event. And because of this, they have finally agreed to testify. And what could come out of that, besides the fact that they could implicate Donald Trump himself and make him have to testify as well? I mean, from them, it could force not only Trump, but also Melania herself to participate, yes, the First Lady. Currently, well, they are going to be witnesses, they are going to testify before the House Oversight Committee, that is, before the United States Congress. This is specifically about the child trafficking network. So that's a very delicate issue because it could be that they are going to testify, but due to handling and aerosol issues, they won't testify because of the harshest part so far.
Exactly. The announcement came today, just minutes after Congress threatened for weeks to vote on a contempt resolution. If they refused to cooperate since they didn't want to participate, the same Democrats just accepted it, right? We're going to take whoever we have to take. And well, according to Bill Clinton's spokesperson, Angel Urena, the former presidents negotiated in good faith, but accused Republican Committee Chairman James Corner of not doing so. In his statement, Urena added that the Clintons are willing to appear and want to set a precedent that applies to everyone, highlighting their willingness to cooperate despite the political disagreements seen in the United States. The date and location of this appearance have not yet been set, but it is believed it could be in New York, under special conditions.
What will the special conditions be? When will it take place?
A public day?
I mean, just imagine what could come out of that. Both Democrats and Republicans will be there questioning things, and what will be said there. I mean, if they're caught, for example, saying something and lying, they could get into trouble, even end up in jail. I mean, come on, what they say there has to be the absolute truth. Everything has to be well documented. They're going to be asked about everything, right? Well, yes, that's how it is now. It's like a hunt to find as many guilty people as possible to prevent, well, Trump from ending up in jail. But this situation is escalating as it should because after all, these are serious cases. So, pay attention to this matter that's already underway, and a former president, well, it says a lot about what could come. There are many people involved, not just one. Is the Clintons, they're there, well, in Trump's own documents, his own wife, who is mentioned a lot of times. Likewise, other politicians, businessmen, scientists of all kinds, even politicians from different countries. Yesterday there was a development. It was mentioned here how the head of security in Latvia was removed from the government, that he was left out. Because he had some pretty intense comments between Einstein and this person, so they fired him. So the issue is going to keep escalating. But when you see these people sitting in Congress, which hasn't happened yet, but it will, well, that's pretty intense. And here, well, when the data comes in, when the tough stuff arrives, from there, it could have an even more dramatic impact on Trump. Many documents are still missing, and much information remains hidden. Many names have been protected, people who clearly, based on what they say, are involved in something super mega illegal. How is it possible that they're covering up the names of people who clearly need to be investigated? There are people making threats, people making comments about pretty bizarre plans in those documents. How is it possible that they're covering up this person's face? Because there's a case, for example, of a woman. I don't know if you remember this person. I have the name written down here. Susan Hamblin. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows this person or what level of power she might have? But her? From when? She demanded an explanation from this newspaper.
Which is also a tabloid from the United Kingdom.
It's a tabloid from the United Kingdom, one of those super sensationalist ones, but she sued them, and when she did, they quickly removed all the information. Prince Andres, former Prince Andres, when he tried to do the same with DAZN, he couldn't. Yeah, I mean, how is it possible that she has more power than even the prince? Who is this Susanna Hamblin? But watch out, she ran an adoption agency, supposedly called Kids to Families. Why was she running an agency for kids? I mean, it's super suspicious.
Another topic that came up today is that Epstein was very interested in companies that make babies. How do you say designer? Let's not say they modify DNA to have a baby with blonde hair, blue eyes, or a certain height, but he was very interested in that business.
And then there are documents and emails where it is mentioned that a certain person had some children from Africa prepared for him. For example, whether they send them or not, or absurd crazy things, and some names that are indeed blacked out. But, for example, who is this person? I mean, there are certain people who have been erased, who are totally unknown, and you wonder, who are those individuals? I mean, maybe we're looking at a subnetwork there that's more powerful than everything we're seeing right now, and that's completely unknown. They're not even politicians or famous businessmen, they're men who go unnoticed. And they're part of those who are running all those kinds of networks. But a good part of those who run this are simply in limbo. Nothing is known about them. That's because the Department of Justice covered up certain names, right? There are clearly interests involved. Isn't that true? The order is to protect the victims, not those who are the perpetrators. Let's move on. Let's talk about other important matters happening in the world. NATO is making a massive military move right now. And let's not forget that despite everything that's been happening, NATO continues its movements, it keeps preparing. This Marut is trying to understand what's happening in the world, trying to understand what leadership is like now in NATO. With the distrust towards the main partner of the United States tanks then, trying to understand what the future of that organization is. But at the same time, the exercises are moving, the military exercises continue, and this time the largest military exercise has just taken place. At least so far this year. Although it is believed that this exercise being carried out right now will be one of the largest, and not just one of the largest, but the largest. At least in the first 6 months, the exercise is being carried out with a deployment of 10,000 sounds. The Baltic Sea has been one of the most tense areas, especially in recent months, and in 2025, where we saw how within the Baltic Sea there were situations like sabotage, strange movements of these so-called ghost ships, the breaking of these underwater cables, and a pipeline that also transported energy. Between Estonia and Finland, many events began in 2024 and intensified in 2025 in this region. Currently, that's where the largest military movement has occurred in recent months.
Exactly. What makes it unique is that the United States isn't involved, which fuels speculation. They took too long to act since Trump was in his first term. If you get one president like that, it's likely you'll get another similar one later. And the operation aims to test the speed and effectiveness of the response to a simulated attack against a member country, highlighting the Allied Reaction Force's deployment capability in a deteriorating environment. And in fact, Spain is leading the naval operations from its base in Rota, Cadiz, mobilizing the assault ship called Castilla and the frigates, Cristobal Colon, Admiral Bourbon, and the logistics ship Patino.
And in fact, it is leading the naval operations by mobilizing Castilla frigates, Cristobal Colon and Admiral Bourbon, Admiral Bourbon and Admiral Bourbon. Admiral Bourbon is the one leading the naval operations from his base in Cadiz, mobilizing assault ships which are Cristobal Colon and Admiral Bourbon.
Exactly. The German port, which is called Kiel, is the one acting as the nerve center for arrival and redistribution. Meanwhile, the objectives, the exercises, are rather focused on the areas near the German coast. For operations like amphibious reconnaissance patrols and simulated combat scenarios.
That's the thing. These are interesting movements and deployments. Now, another matter that also draws attention is what's happening in Venezuela, where there's a meeting between Delcy Rodriguez and the United States. She doesn't meet with the new chargé d'affaires. She's not an ambassador, she's the chargé d'affaires. the United States. This is like a first step. Many times when the United States doesn't have an ambassador in a country, it appoints a chargé d'affaires. That's what they've done in Venezuela. This is the first diplomatic meeting in Venezuela between the United States and Venezuela since 2019.
Exactly. And also after the fall of Maduro, right? The rapprochement happens weeks after this due to United States pressure. Let's remember what happened, right? This takeover happened quickly with Nicolas Maduro. Tomorrow, January 3rd, marks 1 month. According to the United States diplomat, who, by the way, is named Laura Dog, the meeting revolves mainly around a plan, in the 3-phase plan. Marco Rubio brought it up recently. So what will they do about Venezuela? Which is stabilization, which is first to deal with all the setbacks they're having, all the economic losses, economic recovery, and transition to democracy. That's what they're planning. I believe it's 18 months not for new elections in Venezuela.
That's one of the estimates they make, although really, well, nobody knows. I mean, there's still no exact date yet. The other possibility is that it's something quick. I mean, that it could be 1 month, 2 months. That's another possibility that's also being considered. But no, nothing has been said yet. I mean, they're looking at what could happen in the end, the calculation they want to make from Delcy Rodriguez's government. So then who could survive? And what they want right now is to convince part of the population of Venezuela that, well, in the future they could or would want to vote for them. So they're going to do everything possible to have it. To try to convince. However, they still retain many bad habits from the regime's later years. So let's see what happens. The message that Diosdado gave today. Exactly. Let's listen to this comment. Let's see. So what is he saying there? Diosdado?
They have committed crimes and reprehensible acts. Without a doubt, they have committed crimes and reprehensible acts.
This is referring to the political prisoners. I mean, basically what he's saying is that the political prisoners should continue being political prisoners. But are they going to be given a chance to behave? I mean, it's crazy. It's the regime wanting to keep being the regime as always. He has been repressive. So basically what he's saying is we're going to keep repressing. We're going to give them this chance. But if they go back to doing the same things, which is basically being opposition, then he's saying they're going to apply the same thing to them again. I mean, it's crazy. That's why he's going one way. And if he wants to go a completely different way, that's up to him. So this person, well, I don't know if he can't control him, if he's already completely lost control of him or what's going on. Did the same thing happen before? Because everyone is watching the story of what happened in Panama when the dictator fell at the time, when the United States went after him. What happened when this Franco died? And indeed, there were people who wanted to keep the same dynamic of an authoritarian regime, even in Spain. Some politicians tried to destabilize things. Remember the armed military man who entered Congress? This one who is, well, I mean, we know him from history, not because there are videos of it. And also in the case of what's it called, Panama and other countries that have gone through that transition, well, it hasn't usually been an easy transition. It has its problems. He's among the most visible, but not the only one. I mean, like him, there must be several others who are thinking about wanting to keep things and power by force.
Exactly. And for example, it's known that Diosdado isn't sleeping at his house right now. He's sleeping at the embassy of an allied country. We assume it's Russia, right? It's more logical, or China, either one, out of fear that the United States will come and take him away. In the end, he has continued with this more aggressive attitude toward the United States. Today, Maria Corina Machado says she's ready to meet with Delcy Rodriguez to talk about the transition. She says she wants to discuss a timeline. She says democratic, so that the process is irreversible. She says that if it's necessary to exchange ideas in a meeting for the purpose of defining the transition timeline, then it will be done. As I said, any process relies on recognizing July 28, 2024 as a transition date.
Well, that's the issue. Let's see if that meeting happens. Let's move on to other important matters. Thank you for watching the video. Notice that there is a series of earthquakes happening in an area that is already well known for earthquakes. When something grabs our attention, we discuss it here. There are more earthquakes occurring in California. It's an activity that surprises us and at least does raise an alert, a seismic swarm that doesn't generate an urgent warning, but it does draw attention. There have been around 20-something earthquakes reported in the last 24 hours. So, these 24 or so small earthquakes have been drawing attention, catching people's attention. In the San Francisco Bay, California, the largest one was a magnitude 4.2, and I imagine that's part of why this is drawing attention in San Ramon.
Exactly. If you remember, about a month ago or so, we also talked to you about this area that's generating a lot of earthquakes. Well, this scene is repeating itself again. In the last few days, they've already mentioned more than 20 earthquakes in a very short period of time.
This is the area. They're showing another area that also has a lot, but this is the area I'm talking about. This is San Ramon, directly across from the bay. Let me see if I can show it here. That's not the area in San Francisco. There's San Francisco. And this is where this map moves. There it is. This is the area where a significant number have been occurring. Yes, there are several earthquakes. We need to stay alert.
That place. San Ramon is on a fault called the Calaveras Fault, which is a branch of the San Andreas Fault, and it causes fear that the rupture might become more significant. I mean, that something bigger than what the Calaveras Fault actually was is happening.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that issue. We're not going to report everything that happens. If there's any problem, we'll talk about it here. If you're in California, leave us a message, okay? Here, we always pay attention to your comments, messages, emails, and info. Thank you so much for always being here, always active. Let's move on to other matters, a bit more about the earthquake, and also to other important topics. The United States is taking an unusual step that stands out, especially since Europe is also involved, right? I mean, the President of the United States announced a trade agreement with India in which, well, they're doing the opposite of what was being proposed, reducing tariffs. This, well, is going to become an advantage for other countries that haven't negotiated that issue with India. President Europa did it, now he's doing it too, and he mocked the agreement. By the way, Trump mocking, saying that he called Bonderly the mother of all agreements. Well, Donald Trump doesn't want to be left behind in that regard. And after a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he committed to stop buying Russian oil in order to buy it from the United States, which he has already been doing. By the way, are they currently buying from him or planning to? Is there a commitment to buy Venezuelan oil? Sales have skyrocketed right now with the United States administration. Since now they are opening up, sales have skyrocketed. Right now it's already more or less more than double what they've sold in recent months. Right now they're selling tremendously. If you want, we can talk about it in more detail tomorrow. But several months ago, Trump was already anticipating that, well, India would stop buying Russian oil, and they were also looking to put pressure on India to reach a trade agreement. This already seems to be a fact.
Well, have they managed to exchange Russian oil for Venezuelan oil? India reportedly agreed to halt Russian oil purchases and buy more from the United States and Venezuela. Donald Trump stated this today on Truth Social. Yes, well, he assured that India would reduce its barriers, both tariff and regulatory, to zero, and also that they are going to buy $500 billion worth of American products.
Well, all right, there they are. These are the kinds of agreements that are, let's say, part of the pressure they wanted to apply with tariffs. This Trump to this Modi. Modi is also, well, another very, very curious character. He's like a Trump, but the Indian version, right? He also has those characteristics with a lot of comments and very tough and broad. But the point is that they reached an agreement. They agreed to work together. Many economic experts say that the growth coming to Asia won't just come from China, but mainly from three countries, which are Indonesia, India, and obviously Japan. So these are three countries that are really trying to push forward. South Korea and Taiwan are not falling behind, while China is a major economic competitor to the United States. Now, it's not just China, even though people usually mention China. Well, clearly there are more countries, and what the United States has been doing, both Biden and Trump, and really both Democrats and Republicans, have been trying. I mean, stopping the Chinese engine is impossible, and it's not even convenient for the United States either. What they want is to slow down the engine. In other words, let's diversify China's progress, making sure that, well, yes, business continues, but also Vietnam, Singapore, and even India. Or that these countries, which are also powers or potential powers, can also grow and not depend on just one country, because we've already seen what happens. This, above all, the awakening, so to speak, happened during the pandemic when China decided to close all the factories and say there's nothing here. Nothing will be made, leave, or enter during this period. These reasons caused the industry to relocate. Now they're returning to China and won't come back, saying if this happens again, we'll be shut down again. So there were a lot of losses because of those changes that were made, but those are changes that China can't recover from so easily right now. Interesting topic. Another thing about India.
Not about India, no.
Be careful with that. Good for Venezuela. On the business side, let's hope the money goes where it should. Notice that this is also a topic that draws a lot of attention because they say there would be a change. This would surpass everything we've seen before in space, which is the creation of a surprising number of satellites. We're not saying that, according to reports, there's currently a process, a request for authorization to put into orbit. And now, that's saying a lot. When Elon Musk said, no, we want to put 19,000 satellites in space, people said, wow, 19,000 satellites, that's a lot. And now they already have several thousand up there, right? But the request right now is to put into orbit. Listen closely to this information. 1 million solar satellites. The idea is to use them as artificial intelligence data centers. This is obviously something that's attracting a lot of attention here. We're talking about satellites that have a different function than a normal satellite or a satellite like Starlink. We're not talking about that, and this isn't the only project of this kind that's been around for a while. I mean, the idea is to put satellites that work as artificial intelligence centers powered by solar energy. I mean, these are satellites that will be farther away, in theory farther from Earth, with these panels to generously use the sun's own energy, process the data from the chairs so you don't need to set up the centers, using energy and water not from here, but they'll be over there without using water, without using any energy except for the sun's.
Right? Also, this minimizes, just imagine, for example, how much it costs to cool them, just with that, not like how much it costs to cool us here on Earth. Also considering that, well, it's getting hotter and hotter, but out there in space, it's so cold, so that's good. You also save on these maintenance and operating costs, and well,
there's no dust, no pollution. I mean, here it's really complicated because those data centers have to be ultra spotless, ultra clean so that these devices last longer. Giving them more life there means they'll be cold and dust free without those issues. A solar storm is still a problem though.
Exactly. Well, the satellites would be taking advantage of the constant explosion of solar energy in space to power these autonomous data centers and eliminate the need for energy from Earth. The goal is to revolutionize the processing and storage of data needed for artificial intelligence, which today depends on very high costs. It's very expensive now, so they tell us not to thank the intelligences because it costs money, right?
Yes, it's a position. They haven't received any gratitude.
You can't say thank you to ChatGPT because Sam Adman says it costs them money. Yeah, even this costs money.
Yeah, every post costs money, right? Now it's decreasing impressively, more and more. It's more efficient because ideas are precisely trying to be more efficient, but you need to think differently. That's what's required. Maybe this project could be part of the solution. There are others who want to put that kind of data center under the sea. Come on, there are so many ideas out there right now. I was just talking about it the other day. But it's still in the process, kind of like an experiment, of having data centers that work differently. I mean, they have other elements that don't heat up. So the the ones that are like chips but with artificial neurons.
With human neurons, no, yes.
Exactly, they're human neurons that are basically cloned. And with that, it makes the heat and processing much greater, with much less energy. So, could that also be another possible solution? There they are, they're trying to look at options. Returning to the current global geopolitical situation. The Syrian forces are already gradually taking control of the facilities where the Kurds were. The agreement is already becoming more solid. This is going to bring a lot of peace of mind to the Turks and a lot of peace of mind to the Syrians themselves. Because they say, well, they're reaching agreements, they're shaking hands. Basically, those divisions that seemed impossible to solve, well, they're being solved with words. Some small groups still disagree, but the main group, the FDS, has already accepted. They're already joining the same government, also becoming part of the same soldiers. I mean, it's an integration that won't be easy, that might take years to see. But this is a very important step for Syria to start finding that
unity that the partial agreement with the Syrian Ministry of Interior is exactly seeking. So Hasaka and Qasami would already be under government control with government forces present. Today, they are entering Hasaka first, a Kurdish stronghold in the country's northeast. As part of this agreement, the measures mark the beginning of the gradual transfer of military and civilian institutions controlled by the Kurds to the country, not to the central government.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Well, it's interesting news, isn't it really?
It really is. The thing is, suddenly, with Arab countries, they still see themselves as tribes, they still fight like tribes, and they forget that they are actually a country.
Exactly. Well, that's how it is. And besides, with decades of divisions and decades of one group against another, well, that's something that will have to start being thought about differently. Let's move on to other important topics. A person showing up now will spark many rumors, not just about the Einstein issue and related topics, but one of the people who appears and whom we're seeing right now, well, not yet, but there he is. Look, just see if you recognize him. That's the famous magician, right? David Copperfield, who's there hugging as if he's carrying Maxwell, not Einstein's partner or ex-partner. Well, according to reports, the FBI did investigate him back in 2007 to determine if he had referred any victims. I mean, to see if there was any victim involved in this matter. Is that what they're saying?
Well, at that time, a woman from Seattle filed a complaint saying that David Copperfield had abused her on a private island in Ushakai. The investigation ended in 2010 without charges, but it's mentioned in the new Epstein files from the Department of Justice. You can see there was a strong connection and friendship between David Copperfield and Jeffrey Epstein during separate 2007 investigations. The FBI memo said it should be investigated whether both shared a preference for minors and refers to mutual victims that they both share.
That's something that will need further investigation. We'll see what happens. So far, when they've investigated her, they've let her go, let's say, but the suspicions are still there.
Exactly. The FBI has found records, for example, at Copperfield's residence, which include information about women, photographs, contacts. If he had to write it down, just imagine if he had been with that person or not, just to be sure. And several of them were guests or were marked as guests of Epstein. With this one,
let's discuss other important matters too. Something strange is happening in Washington. There is a very particular case that the head of security is facing, not the director. United States National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is facing a very strange situation, but very, very strange. There's something unusual in this case being discussed since it involves ultra-secret documents. Just imagine, it's someone who is suing the head of intelligence. Just imagine how difficult, how complicated that's going to be, because the one who's supposed to investigate doesn't want to investigate. She's in charge of the toughest, most intense investigations there, right? So within this whole investigation that's going on, it's known that there's a document that they claim is ultra secret, but it's suspected that this could be manipulated by the intelligence agency itself. Well, for her to investigate us, it's a complaint that's being made directly to her, and that's what they claim. Well, it's a situation where even the person making the complaint could be at risk. Tulsi Gabbard, the current Director of National Intelligence of the United States, is facing a formal complaint from a whistleblower who is anonymous, and the contents remain highly classified. Congress hasn't even been able to access it, not even the United States Congress has access. This complaint is raising alarms that they might want to erase that document and erase the individual, some say even kill him. Well, I don't know if it's that much, but it is pretty serious. Even the Wall Street Journal is already investigating.
Exactly, per sources cited in the Wall Street Journal. There is an internal dispute about the complaint, and it is alleged that Gabbard deliberately blocked that disclosure, causing legal and political clashes. Olivia Coleman, spokesperson for the Director of National Intelligence, flatly denied the accusations and states that there was absolutely no wrongdoing on Gabbard's part, remembering that the Inspector General considered the complaints to be not credible.
Well,
it's difficult when the judge, yes.
It's really tough, and that's how it is. If this document ends up in the hands of the media, well, maybe later we'll find out about some situation there. Strange, right? But is it like something is catching fire for Trump?
If he wants to put it out,
he moves on quickly, so it seems his approach is to set the whole world on fire. And it's like he says, my little fire is just a small blaze compared to what's happening somewhere else.
It's been nearly a year since last May, and although it's following the usual channels, it still hasn't reached Congress. It's known that it has an executive privilege seal, which means that Trump put a seal on it so that information is out of Congress's reach. Until I don't know what a dictatorship is.
They all cover for each other there. It's intense interference, which some call illegal, and eventually this will be exposed. But for now, Tulsi is still active, still in office. No.
Well, last week something happened. I think it's unprecedented in the United States. And that's because the FBI conducted a surprise search at the Fulton County Election Center in Georgia. And it really caught everyone's attention that Tulsi Gabbard was also there. And well, today it was revealed that after this, Tulsi Gabbard made a direct call to Trump and agents who were investigating the ballots in Georgia. Remember that Tulsi Gabbard was the mediator in the secret meeting at that time? Well, this record that was made has attracted a lot of attention. Obviously, it has raised a lot of red flags about whether something is being done to control the elections, the midterms, and well, as far as we know, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was present during this recording and later had a closed-door meeting with agents. Her role doesn't involve these tasks. She doesn't have to do them. So what was she after? Nothing. She has nothing to do there in those criminal investigations. And, well, 3 sources say Gabbard used her cell phone to contact Trump and agents, but he didn't give her direct orders. Her contact was described as a motivational speech, according to former prosecutors. And experts like David Luffman warned that this kind of involvement is undermining the independence of the FBI and the Department of Justice, turning it into a tool for the president to do whatever he wants, to get him out of trouble as well, as we see in your case.
It's very curious. This is really, really intense. Well, that's how things are. In this situation, let's move on to another important topic. Many thanks also to Vicky.
Greetings.
Vicky, she says with much affection, thank you for everything. Go have dinner. Greetings. Thank you very much. Greetings, Vicky. And we will follow your advice. Many thanks also to the whole community that supports us with a super chat, with a super thanks down below. In the description, there are several ways to support this news channel. We thank everyone who has subscribed and liked, and we're very grateful to those who go further and support us. Let's move on then to other matters, other important topics as well. This remains a controversial topic due to the challenges and problems caused by lice in the United States. And look, well, now they say that if they get the order from the Trump administration, will the immigration and customs enforcement agents have to use cameras? It's mandatory in order to determine whether they're doing something legal or illegal, and to have a record, the recording.
Exactly. Today, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security, Christina Ann, announced that starting now, immigration agents who are, for example, in Minneapolis, are going to start wearing body cameras. Well, as a result of the deaths of 2 United States citizens who were participating in demonstrations. And well, her comment is that it's with immediate effect, and we are deploying body cameras for all agents on duty in Minneapolis. Since, well, it has been a problem that has been questioned a lot about how it's possible that this record doesn't exist exactly.
Well, that's how things are, right? It's really tough. What LICE is doing is good in many cases because it's basically a matter of crime-related racism, basically something that's done against a lot of people. Authorities are investigating several cases involving civilians who may have been directly affected. Not only those who have been shot, but other types of cases as well. Of course,
some have lost their eyes, for example.
Those who lost their eyes or suffered issues due to attacks by these groups. Now let's move on to another interesting topic. Just to wrap up, before we go to the comments, a series of ballistic missile attacks is being reported right now over in Ukraine. It's an ongoing issue. The war simply hasn't stopped. And well, that's the problem. Not only has it not stopped, but the attacks keep happening on a large scale. They're even using the famous drones, but also ballistic missiles against areas including civilian infrastructure.
Currently, the attacks target the city of Kyiv directly. This would be the night of February 3rd, and it's aimed at the most important cities, including the capital.
Well, there it is. We'll be watching tomorrow to see how Ukraine wakes up, to see how the capital wakes up. Obviously, given this situation,
no.
Those ceasefire pauses are never respected, and that's not great. Let's go to the comments. Let's go to the comments then. How have you been? Alex, what do you think if we talk about the AIS people? But some Hispanics still behave badly and do wrong things despite the violence, says Alex. Well, that isn't really about authority, right? It's like, well, saying, I don't know, the murderer kills someone. Oh, but there are also bad people in the world. Well, yes, obviously, right? But what does that have to do with it, right? I mean, what does that have to do with the fact that an authority is attacking and doing illegal things against the population? That's a different point, but I send my regards and greetings to Pixel 2.
A 67?
No, this one is there's no way to justify the actions of that group, right? Or is there no way to justify them? It's a topic that is, well, tremendous and even less, and honestly, I don't know, it's hard to understand. Do Hispanics or Latinos belong to the AIS? You're right, it's surprising there are people like that. They cover their faces because if they were proud of their actions, they wouldn't hide. It's an authority that has to hide its face. They're ashamed because deep down they know what they're doing is wrong. Hello, Martin Gutierrez. How are you? Francisco Arce. Hi, Roble. How have you been? Hello, Valerias del Mar. Greetings, Adelson. How have you been? Hello, Maria Gonzalez Benedicto. Hello to the whole community that's joining. How have you all been? Raul, hello. What's up?
Greetings to Raul Sachs. How are you?
Greetings, Raul.
How have you been? Francisco Arce asks Angie how she is. Angie, Amanda Alvarez is very good. Pablo Bartera, also greetings to 6-7, the land of freedom.
Yes, well, obviously there are challenges. Sometimes you have to recognize that there's still a lot to do. That doesn't mean there are more freedoms in other regions, obviously. Well, I suppose they have their own as well. They need to thoroughly review what kind of country they want, right? I mean, do they want a country with the freedoms they used to boast about? Or do they want to keep heading in the direction they're going? Because they're moving toward a point where those freedoms are far from what they used to be. I mean, that's also a huge issue, right? Greetings, 7, very good. Adilson, how have you been? Very good. Hey, Robel, how are things there? Hope you're well, greetings.
Greetings to Julio Benavides, how are you? I mean, all the way to Lima, Peru. What's up, Lima? Greetings to Raquel Velasquez, hi, Daddy. Can you already find out about National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Anchor project? I heard from a fellow countryman. Greetings from Madrid.
Hi, how have you been in Madrid? How's everything? Yes, we'll gladly check it out.
Greetings to Adam, who says, good morning, buddy. And also to Fatima and Tapatia. What do you say, Tapatia?
Greetings, Tapatia, to Raquel Velasquez.
And also here, 7 says, experts in saving time. That's why their civilization is over 5,000 years old. Speaking of Iran...
Well, Gisela says hello and that the Epstein case opened Pandora's box, regretting the impunity. How have you been, Gisela? Big greetings.
Well, we haven't shared it with you, but Marjorie Taylor made a video who used to be very Make America Great Again, very Republican, very pro-Trump. And when Trump talks to her, because she says that when Trump talks to her, well, when any politician talks to her, she always puts it on speaker so her whole team can listen, and Trump talks to her. He was very annoyed because remember that she was the one who put the most pressure, along with another Republican and another Democrat, to get the documents released. And he told her that he couldn't release them because, well, it would affect a lot of his friends, he said. But the victims were there. You had the victims in your Oval Office, and they don't deserve it. They don't deserve to have been in the Oval Office. I mean, just imagine how it feels. At that moment, I obviously said, no, well, I can't be here.
Well, no, just imagine. It's overwhelming. Cheers, how has Jose Gonzalez been? Thanks for joining us. Cheers, Jose Flores. Also my namesake and others. Today, Ruben says, wait, aren't you referring to Ruben?
Greetings to Ponapon. Jose Aznar, Spain's former president, appeared with his son and son-in-law. Yes, no, all the families are there. For example, Trump and all his children.
Well, yes, he says, thank you, we're live, great. Cheers, Ruben. How are things going over there? Ruben, how do you see the situation? What is it? What do you think is happening? Cheers from Pepe in Nicaragua. How are you handling the cold? It's calm here in Managua. Glad things are calm there too. You know, not today. Honestly, we didn't have much of a chance to go out. So, the only thing I can tell you is that it's cool, but really nice. Yeah. It's about 10 degrees here, but with sun during the day, so it feels really calm. Let's say a very pleasant kind of cold, right? Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
says Christie. Comment, yes, it already came out. The heiress to the Norwegian crown, also the famous one, is also the wife of the heir, but yes, her too. It already came out. It's a big mess now.
The wife who is the mother of this young man who's involved.
And also today, a prince from Belgium came out. I didn't even know there was a prince. Well, yes, there is. I mean, no. I don't think there's a country that's spared.
Yes, this one is good, really good.
Maybe Haiti, very poor countries.
It reminds me of the case of, and who knows why this one, well, and then those countries go and, well, take people away. I mean, it reminds me of all these conspiracies that came out for years and years. I'm not saying, obviously, well, there are some things that are said in those kinds of stories that are totally unreal, but there are also others that turn out to be true, right? Yeah, like those cases that talked about this MK Ultra thing, which sounded crazy. It sounded like it was just made up. Like, I mean, it's fake. And then later in CIA documents, well, they admit that they, let's say, that project existed. Let's say supposedly they scrapped it, but it did exist. So suddenly, yeah, reality is stranger than fiction in some cases.
Not exactly. There are many things we'll never know because although Congress tells the project leader not to burn anything, he burns everything anyway. Just imagine how it was.
Greetings, Francisco. Very good. Pablo says, the forest fires don't stop, he says. Very curious. No one from the left. It's not full of left-wing people.
Where?
In the, of course, not to mention the Clintons are there. In this Chomsky,
The Democrats are left-wing.
or is Chomsky also, yes, super left-wing? No, it's not full of left and right. I mean, there's everything there, everything.
Goalkeeper?
Right wing. Yes.
Hello, Piston Roca, watching from Uruguay. How are you?
Greetings, Eugene James. Greetings. Very good, Adrian. How have you been? Maria Gonzalez, how have you been? No, yes,
It's everywhere.
everything's here. They're great. Scientists, businessmen, all sorts of people. It's amazing.
Greetings to Leonardo Escudero, Griselda Vilches. How are you, Griselda? Also, Gerardo Hernandez and Adilson.
Hello, Eugene James. Greetings. How's it going? How have you been?
Greetings, it said Sendeños from Panama.
Greetings to Panama. Very good. Ruben Williams, how are you? What's new, Adrian? How are things in Spain? Even Chomsky spoke out. Just imagine.
We can't trust anyone anymore.
I mean, yeah, there was everything, says Victor. How have you been? Hello, Brezeka too. Greetings, how are you doing?
Hello to Yalala and Maria Gonzalez. How are you, Yalala?
Very good, he says. The comadre told the pot revenge is best served cold, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Greetings, Mercedes. Very good.
Says Marcos Herrera. There is perversion in all ideologies.
Exactly, it's everywhere.
How is it possible that such powerful, intelligent people let themselves be carried away by such low things? Yes, it's impressive giving a handshake. I haven't seen.
No, I haven't seen it. In those documents,
There's a photo of Epstein with him, but it's from an event he attended, as stated. Such practices occur in politics, arts, the church, basically everywhere.
exactly. Yes, they do happen, says Gerardo. But he says a case for international courts, the trial of San Jose, would fall short.
Yes, nothing should happen. I mean, yes, each country should look for, okay, where are my people to prosecute them? Because honestly, it's not going to happen, but it would be good.
Says Martin. Do you really think Cuba will change its government? It's usually the people who suffer, says Martin Gutierrez. The situation is that right now, the Cuban government is giving signs that they are going to negotiate. Cuban state television came out this morning to comment that and to release a statement in which they basically say, we do not accept any terrorist group here, we are going to cooperate with the United States. And that's the end of it. The institutional part didn't come out, they left it aside, like that comment, very aggressive, not towards the United States. And suddenly they said, well, let's negotiate, supposedly. So were they really going to negotiate? Is it because they asked Trump? And Trump says the collapse has already happened. I mean, the collapse has already taken place inside Venezuela. But Trump also admitted that if they are negotiating with altruism, then that's what the United States and Cuba are saying. Both agree that as long as they are talking, the key question is where the dialogue is heading. I mean, is it to negotiate a transition towards something democratic or toward what, right? Without gasoline, there was already little tourism.
Tourists didn't visit this street.
Right? The travel agencies are starting to send people to other places, other areas of the Caribbean, because they see this problem lasting for a long time. What they used to tell them at La Visora was to bring a flashlight. I mean, if you're going on vacation, the agencies themselves would tell them, bring a flashlight, bring extra batteries for your cell phones, etc. But now it's gotten to the point where not even that, says Maria. How sad that people start fires seeing the state the planet is in, says Maria Gonzalez. How are you, Maria? Greetings, says Maku. It would be good for it to be the 33rd state of Mexico, says Gerardo. How are you, Gerardo? Greetings, says Marcos. Cuba has been suffering for 67 years, says Marcos. How have you been, Marcos? Greetings, he says. Suggestion. Should there be a special program about the Epstein case? Is there a lot of information? He says. Yes, a lot of information.
Yes, there's a program where Pepe explains it, more or less. Not the Epstein case, but the would-be father-in-law. Let's just say father-in-law, since Epstein was never married. Maxwell's father, who has a very interesting parallel with Epstein.
Yes, something there and possible. We will be summarizing day by day whatever comes up, not just the most interesting things, because it's a case that will go on for a long time. That's what it says. How are you, Fernanda? Hello, Fabis. How have you been? Hi to Julio Benavides as well.
Says Julio Benavides. Mike Hammer, the United States commercial attaché who was attacked, is doing an incredible job visiting people, says Julio Benavides.
Yes. Well, here we show it in the image of the ambassador, well, going out there, let's say, and knocking on doors there with the Cubans.
Yes. Greetings to Gisela Hines. How are you doing too? Alabado says hello, baby. Greetings, Alabado.
Hello, how are you? Maria Gonzalez, Francisco Arce. Great. Norma, how have you been? Greetings to Argentina. How have you been? Is Norma Mata? Hello, very good. So let's go.
Let's go, guys. Remember, we're on WhatsApp, Telegram. We send notifications there. X, Instagram, and Facebook.
A hug. Take care. See you tomorrow with the information. We interrupt your regular programming. Thank you for tuning in. The truth is, this is Pepe Live.
The truth is intense, harsh. The unusual is real, harsh. Here we analyze it. Global perspective. Don't miss out. Tune into the Pepe Live channel, controlling the signal. Pepe and Astrid telling it like it is. Raw journalism here. It's respected. Turn on the alert. Don't lose track until next time. Yes, sir. We're taking attendance. Subscribe. Pepe